Hello, my name's Duncan and welcome to Back Away from Donkey and Bath Books. And this is the second part of my books that were adapted from comics and comic books and illustrated bits and comic strips. So this is the top 10. If you want to see the other part, I'll put a link up there and one down there and wherever. So this is number 10 to 1. Yeah, number 10 is Kick-Ass from Mark Millar's and John Romota's comic of the same name. And we have Chloe Grace Moretz and Nicolas Cage, and it's almost what if ordinary people became superheroes. Nicolas Cage is chewing the scenery and being fantastic, and it's just a great film. And if you've not seen it, you should do. It's funny, it's touching, and everything you want in a good sort of superhero-ish type film. Number 9, you have V for Vendetta from Alan Moore's novel, or graphic novel. And as with most of these, he hates the adaptation of his work, which he normally does. This was done by the Wazowskis, the film. I really love the film. It's Hugo Weaving showing that you can do the whole film with a mask on and put emotion across and be fantastic in it. And Natalie Portman's great in it. It's about a fascist state and the character V. And it's all round firework night, bonfire night. What does bug me is when people who don't know UK stuff assume that the poem Remember the 5th of November comes from the film, whereas in fact it's a very old poem here. And all the story about Guy Fawkes is very interesting if you want to go read about it. Number 8 is a bit of a weird one. It's Hardware, Richard Stanley's first film. It is from a story called Shock, which was in the 1981 Judge Dredd annual, which I have a copy of somewhere. I'll put a picture on the screen of one of the panels from it. When the film came out, they were sued by Fleetway Publications, producers of Judge Dredd in 2000 AD, because the story basically was that story. And actually, if you read the original story, it is almost a direct take. It really was. But it is a great film. It's a story of a guy who picks up scrap metal and brings the head of a robot back to his girlfriend, who makes sculptures, and the robot sort of rebuilds itself and does stuff. But the beginning piece of it, they have an area like the Zone. It's very Roadside Picnic. If you've seen Red Roadside Picnic, it's got to be inspired by that. Soundtrack's great. It's got some Motorhead in it, some Ministry, some great classical pieces in there. Lemmy from Motorhead makes a cameo in there with one of the worst bits of acting ever. But Hardware, Richard Stanley's film, is well worth watching. And if you can get hold of the original story it's from, it's worth a read. Number 7 is Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. This one is here because it's from the comic Valerian and Laureline, which is a French comic and it ran for years. It's still running as far as I can know. I could be wrong. It's been a long-term running of sort of French comic industry. But part of the reason it's here is because one of my favourite films ever is The Fifth Element. Even my gorgeous little Sharpei is named Lilu after The Fifth Element. I'll put a picture of her here, little wrinkly girl. But yes, that's part of the reason it's here. But this film looks beautiful. And as with The Fifth Element, if you don't like the looks of it, you've got to be something wrong with you. It looks beautiful. It may not be the best film in the world, but it deserves to be there and it deserves to be remembered. And I think it's a lot better than people give it credit for. And I may be putting it in there just because I love The Fifth Element so much. But hey, it's my list. I can do what I like with it. Next one is a bit of a sort of shoe-in. It's Hugo, the film Hugo, Martin Scorsese's film. The only one he ever did in 3D. It's from the book The Adventure Hugo Cabaret by Brian Selznick. The reason, to me, it counts as a comic movie is because the hardback book of it is 522 pages and 400 of them are pictures. So that's got to be a graphic novel, hasn't it? It's got to count as a graphic novel. The film is a love letter to cinema. It's about Hugo, whose dad has made a automaton, of this thing that doesn't work. And his dad dies and he ends up going to live with his uncle, who maintains the clocks in the railway station. And so they're all behind the scenes there. And then his uncle disappears and he's living behind the clocks and scared of getting caught by the local police officer. It is a beautiful looking film. It's a love letter to cinema. If you love films, if you love beautiful stuff, just watch it, Hugo. So yeah, it's Martin Scorsese's Hugo. Number 5 is Superman from 1978. Richard Donner's film with wonderful Christopher Reeve, who embodies Superman as far as I'm concerned. He was everything Superman should have been and should be. No suits full of muscles. It was just him. He was actually trained by Dave Prowse, who played the physical body of Darth Vader in the Star Wars films, who trained him for it. And sorry, everything's perfect in the film. It's exactly how Superman should be. So that was number 5. Number 4 is Dredd, starring Carl Urban, directed by Pete Travis. It is basically the film The Raid, but in Judge Dredd land in Mega City. Judge Dredd with Judge Anderson go into a building to try and collect some criminals, and it's basically them getting trapped in there and working their way through it. It is everything you'd want from a Judge Dredd movie. Carl Urban is fantastic, keeps his helmet off through the whole of the thing, which shows it could do. The Judge Anderson, I can't remember who plays her, is really, really good. And I still have a soft spot for Sylvester Stallone's Judge Dredd movie. There's something about it, but this is what you wanted from a Dredd movie. Obviously adapted from the comic from 2000 AD and Judge Dredd, everybody knows that. So, yeah, Dredd movie, number 4. Number 3, Bong Joon-ho's Snowpiercer. I'm going to have to put this up because I'm going to work out. It's adapted from the graphic novel called La Transpensiage, terrible French pronunciation, which was done in 1982. There's been several books on it. It was never translated into English until 2012 or 2014, and I still never read it. But it's basically about a train circling the circling the world after the world's gone to pot and it's all frozen, and it's about the poor people at the back, nothing, and the rich people at the front of the train, and conflict ensues. The film stars Tilda Swinton, Chris Evans, John Hurt, Jamie Bell, and it is a really, really stunning film from a comic source, and you need to watch it if you get a chance. Though, still well worth watching the TV series, which I think is on. Is it on Amazon? Amazon. There was 2 seasons of it, and it is really, really good as well. So that was Snowpiercer. Number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn. What can we say about this? It was a surprise to everybody. Nobody expected it to be a hit. I like it because it's totally different to any of the other Marvel films. The character Star-Lord I knew because the original incarnation of Star-Lord, if you follow me around, you know that I like the character Star-Lord, the original incarnation. I've been collecting some of the older comics with him in, but I originally came across the character in the back of the Marvel Star Wars comics in the late 70s. And so when Star-Lord appeared here, I thought, is this the same one? And it is sort of they've technically moved him forward, but taken some of the history from some of the old ones. But Guardians of the Galaxy, everything about it is just really, really good. It's got what you want. It doesn't take itself too seriously. Everything works to it. Rocket Raccoon is a absolute gift to anybody, and it all just works. So Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm sure you've all seen it. I think all 3 of the films in there are really great anyway, and they all work well together. And the second one, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, totally destroys me because it came out just at the time my father died, and yes, it's all about fathers. So that film, I can't watch without welling up and falling apart, so I'm not going to speak about that. So my number 1 is Flash Gordon, originally from the cartoons of Alex Raymond. As a child, I remember in school holidays through the 70s, always on the mornings you used to have old Flash Gordon's, Buck Rogers, King of the Rocket Men, the serials from the 30s and 40s, and that was my experience of Flash Gordon. And then in 1980, the Mike Hodges film came out, and I absolutely loved it. And it's everything you want from a comic book movie. It's camp as anything. The colours are bright and they blow your eyes out, and Max von Sydow as Ming the Merciless is fantastic. Sam Jones is good, even though his voice was dubbed in it. And the soundtrack by Queen, everybody knows. Brian Blessed, it just looks and is stunning. At the time, when we went to the pictures, our little cinema in the town where I lived, if you went for the first showing of the day and you just kept quiet and sat in your seat, you could watch all 3 showings for the day because you just sat there and they just did it around and they never threw you out. And I did that with this film. I sat there and watched 3 showings of it in one take because I absolutely loved it, and I still love it. And I got some ridiculously overpriced 4K special edition version that I brought. And if you don't love Flash Gordon, you really, really are. I don't want to speak to you. I don't love Flash Gordon. But anyway, yes. So that is the end of my top 20 list of books, films adapted from comics. Obviously, you can see the second part. I'm hoping that when we do our podcast, me and Al, that we might discuss some of these because I think Al was interested too. So keep your eyes out for that. But thanks for watching, and I will speak to you all very soon. Bye bye.